To imagine that this new world that we live in, where there's billions of people on social, just scrolling down their feed, on their news feed, this is where you get to create this new opportunity of influence. And I like to call it interruption-based marketing or digital door knocking. It's, in a sense, they're going about their day, doing what they do, scrolling down their Facebook feed. They see something, an ad image or ad copy, they click on it. Every opportunity then begins at that moment. And that moment is where you get to create this authentic experience. So that's what I love to talk about most, is not, the lead generation is fun. Everybody loves to generate leads, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to lead conversion. And more importantly, I think it comes down to lead conversation. And that some people need some help in, some people are better than others. Josh has kind of created an amazing formula of success in the way he creates conversations of value with the leads that come in through Facebook and specifically through StreetText. So it's an exciting conversation. And Josh, take it off.
Well, so I love the piggyback. It's funny that you mentioned the conversation conversion thing. So I actually wrote a book a little while ago, a few years ago, 2016 maybe, or 17. And there was an acronym in the book, and the C was, most people would associate conversion. I hate looking at it that way, right? Because especially in real estate, you're not going to convert someone unless you have a conversation. So the reality is the conversation allows you the opportunity to determine two things. Can I help this person, and how can I help this person? So, and I think the idea of converting someone is really a something that limits or holds people back. And if you just think about it, it's actually easier if you think about it in terms of just how can I have more conversations, right? And the conversions will happen naturally as part of those conversations, because conversion sort of conveys this idea that it's an event, right? But really, selling real estate is, it's a process, right? More, as much or more than any industry, it's a process, and the process has to start with a conversation.
Yeah.
And so that's a great point. And just changing your perspective around that, I think is, can make a huge difference in the way you look at lead generation and conversion, right? And just change the perspective on it. And when you change your perspective, the things you're looking at change as well. So that was a great point to kick it off. Love it.
And think of it like this way: it's the top of the funnel rather than the bottom, which people are used to. The bottom of the funnel being, Zillow and Google, people top of mind looking for your services. Top of the funnel is interruption-based marketing. So when you're coming, instead of keeping it on the C conversation, coming from a place of value contribution with conversions, and rather than being a salesperson, you're being a consultant. And so that keeping it on that level as the beginning, authentic, genuine conversation is started. This is why in this day and age, when you interrupt someone's feed and they go back to their inbox or a text message or even receive a call from you, if it doesn't feel authentic and genuine, that's the moment you have. That's your first impression. And your first impression can be the last one if you don't make it a solid first impression. So that's where it gets exciting, because everybody gets to play the game the same on Facebook. There's so much opportunity. You're not fighting with everybody for space. It's a 15-mile minimum radius. Most people are not aware of that either because of the Housing Discriminatory Act. So you're not fighting against every other realtor. Everybody can win on Facebook, but can you take that conversation into this genuine relationship, and are you willing to nurture that database over time, or are you just looking for deals today? Because if you're looking for the deal that's today, you can get it. It's rare. Usually it happens, people get one and they think it's something that they can expect every week. But no, majority of these leads that you start conversations with today on Facebook are in the future.
And that's really good there. And one thing, and what you're talking about, again, to me, that's what part of being the agent is. It's going through and starting those conversations and kind of taking things through. We're great, today we're able to leverage different technologies and people. I'm sure that Josh will get more into that. But I guess kind of going to StreetText, what is I currently don't use StreetText, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here watching this that don't. I spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on shiny objects. So in terms of StreetText, what does StreetText do? to help start those conversations and make those introductions that then I'm sure Josh will go through and elaborate more on what he does to get a 17 times ROI and to be able to leverage his time.
Yeah, I mean, we like to call the ads manager on Facebook the labyrinth of frustration and confusion. It's not an easy platform to use. And when you're talking about managing your time well is not becoming an expert on Facebook. Because Josh has done that. Josh has spent a lot of time in there. And even when you have a team and you're looking to grow and you're looking to leverage that, like, how do you get other people to replicate what you're doing? Well, if it's a very complicated process, you're going to have a very hard time doing that. So what we've done is we just simplified it. You know, when you log into our dashboard, we have already built out funnels and templates that work. We've tested them. We know people are clicking on them. So we connect to your Facebook account, to your ad account, to run your branding and your ad out there, but we make it an easy, simple process. Within 30 seconds, you're going to be able to set up an ad. We teach you the utmost important thing is understanding the split test and how Facebook uses audiences when they first put an ad out there to test against those audiences to see what the engagement is like. So we teach you how to set up that split test within 30 seconds, within 24 hours. Sometimes you have to take 2 days, sometimes 3 days, but within that first learning curve, you're going to know when your ad is hit on an audience that's getting you great results. Then what do? You leave a working ad on. You let the leads come into your funnel and you shift your attention from how do I get an ad working on Facebook to I have an awesome ad on Facebook. My problem now is how do I follow up? That's where most people fail. And that's where you should be spending your time. That's where you should be listening to people like Josh and people in our community that are like, you keep your foot on the gas, keep the leads coming in. It's not a lead problem. We're going to solve that lead problem for people and make it simple for them to get leads. The next kind of like barrier to the business growing is how do I multiply me? How do I show up in those automations? How do I start conversations? How do I nurture these leads? And that's where you should be spending your time to grow in your business, is learning how to do that, not learning where the heck did Facebook put this button? This worked yesterday, and now it's a completely different process today.
100% agree with you on that. And you go through, and even if you do kind of figure it out, it sounds like Josh has spent a lot of time researching Facebook ads. I've spent time on that, and you figure it out, and then the next week it's different. And you know, so on my brokerage, I have 70 agents here, and I get people coming in, asking me questions. Hey, I'm going to run this ad, and I'm just, you know, exhaust myself saying, don't you go through and throwing $100 promoting a post. You know what? You'd get more enjoyment out of just burning that right here in front of you and be less painful. And so that's great. So StreetText, it sounds like it's not that silver bullet. Like everything that we do in this business, it does require some work, but it makes that process much easier. So now StreetText has helped with that. You know, all of a sudden you get all these emails, or what's the next step? Does StreetText help with that? Is there API integration, you know, for people trying to build those systems in the back end? How does that work?
Yes, that's a good one. Josh, what's your experience? I'll give it to you based on when you first started StreetText and how you threw all the solutions together with what you were already doing.
Yeah. So I'll just reiterate a point here, just to emphasize something. When you're looking at how to create more leverage, whether you're a single agent, small team, big brokerage, whatever, you're going to either leverage technology or people or some combination thereof as you grow, right? StreetText, the reason why I took a look at it is because though I had specialized knowledge and I can go in and create an ad, even when Facebook is being a pain in the you know what and changing stuff around, I can figure it out. But does that scale? Is that something that where I can create duplication in my organization where someone could be able, and the answer is unequivocally no. Now with StreetText, I don't have to worry about, oh, they moved this or they moved that or whatever. The StreetText platform it hasn't changed since I started using it. It's very simple. It's like if you remember the old WYSIWYG editor, right? You literally just you fill in answers and you click next a couple of times, and voila, you've got campaigns live. The other thing that intrigued me about StreetText is the built-in CRM. So the ability to create or have automations working for you right out of the box, email and text message, right? Because those two platforms, I would say text more so even than email now, but there's definitely value in both of those media channels, but you don't have to have things in place beyond that to get started. And so I would recommend those trying, interested in checking out StreetText, use that first and foremost. Get comfortable with what StreetText has and the process they've got, and then eventually you can evolve over time and do some things like what I've done, which is I now have my StreetText campaigns. They all are integrated with KB Core, so that all of my leads that I'm generating, thanks to StreetText, using Facebook and Instagram, those leads flow right into my KV Core. And a point of leverage for me is smart campaigns that include email, they include text, they include video email, they include video text, they include ringless voicemail, and I am connecting with people coming into my pipeline in a multimedia fashion. They're seeing my face, they're hearing my voice. I'm delivering, I'm making good on the offer that I made up front as part of the campaign. So someone requests something, like one of the best ways or worst ways, I guess, depending on you look at it, to lose a client or to lose the opportunity to gain a client is by not making good on the thing you've offered. For example, one of the here's another thing I love about StreetText. They're always texting or testing new type of campaigns and offers. And one of the relatively newer one, at least at the time of this live, is an ad around 12 tips for sellers. Well, if you offer a PDF with 12 tips for sellers, you'd better deliver that thing right up front, right? Because if you don't, you've now lost that opportunity. You now, in the eyes of the consumer, you're now just like every other salesperson, right? Oh, this is just a trick to try and get me to sell my house, right? You better make sure the experience is the opposite, right? That instead of coming from a sales perspective, you come from a service perspective. That's what you are. You're a real estate service person, right? You're not you can't be selling. That just doesn't work in the day and age that we live in, this social media age that we live in. So you've got to make good on those offers. And the only way to do that, or the best way to do that in a timely fashion, is by leveraging automations. And you can leverage StreetText, or as you grow and evolve, you can build in other leverage points like integrating with, for example, for myself, KB Core, but you can do it in many different ways. You can do it with LionDesk and Chime and Sierra Interactive and whatever. You can keep a follow-up boss. So the list goes on and on and on. And you can do that. And you also should be leveraging, especially if you're using StreetText for seller leads, platforms like HomeBot in the US, where you can not only deliver on the promise you're making, but even over deliver. Yeah. In the value that you're providing and the information that you're providing for new people coming into your pipeline or responding to your campaigns.
Love it. And let's not forget that when you run an ad of this sort, it is your business page that is going in their personal news feed. So come full circle, and I know this is hard for some people to kind of grasp. Come full circle, it would make sense to connect personally on Facebook. Because whether you like it or not, you're going to be doing your research to find out that person you shouldn't be just looking at them as a lead. You should look to see if you can find them and get to know them and, profile them a little bit. And our system does that, but sometimes you have to take an active role in that. But they're probably going to be doing the same on you. So it makes sense if you can create a connection back personally on Facebook. And so just an idea outside the box too, a lot of people forget you always want to humanize the process. So as much as you can, try to take it back to where they found you, which is their personal connection on Facebook.
100%.
That's great. And so question for you, Josh, 17 times ROI. Unless you invested in Bitcoin a couple of years ago, that's an amazing accomplishment. What do you think you're doing different, or is it, or is that, I mean, I don't think that would be consistent across the board. I mean, as great as StreetText sounds like it is, what do you think that you're doing, and what is it that maybe StreetText is doing to help you to get those returns?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. So many thoughts, I should probably write them down so I don't lose them. First and foremost, I would say is mindset, because though you're saying 17-1 seems incredible, I think too often in our industry, we don't realize the opportunity we have. And if I ask you, you're a real estate agent, I ask you, would you give me $1,000 if I turn around and give you 17,000 back? Obviously, people are going to say, yeah, how many times can I do that? The problem is in real estate, it is that doesn't happen instantly, right? You can't make that exchange and have that occur that same day. But you can have that happen if you take a long game perspective. That can happen over 60, 90, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And so changing your mindset around being willing to invest, figuring out your metrics. What am I willing to invest to get a transaction? Like what's my average transaction? Like what am I actually netting? And what am I willing to invest in that? And if you're not willing to invest that each month or every other week or every week, depending on how you want to scale your business, then you're not really in business. Like you're hoping and dreaming that something is going to change. So I think it starts with the right perspective and understanding that it's the long game. Marcus mentioned already here, you can get lucky. And in fact, I would say that I got lucky, quote unquote, in that my very first week when I was still on a StreetText trial, I got an address only lead that ended up turning into a listing and turning into actually multiple transactions because of the opportunities that came from that listing. But it took that still to, even though that lead came in during my trial in my first week, that still took 4 months for it all to happen. For me to actually realize that ROI, that type of ROI. So you've got to have the right perspective first and foremost, and then you've got to have things in place. So for example, I don't know that I've ever shared this on these lives. Not that I'm hiding something, but one of the ways I'm leveraging technology and people to make sure that. Well, let me take a step back. So you need to, we talked about how you need to make good on the offer, right? Like you've got to make good on micro commitments, but what you also want to do is have things in place to sift and sort out that small percentage that are looking to do something in the short term, because there is a small percentage, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, and that'll fluctuate throughout the year, what percentage that is, right? Because there's more people actively looking to do something in the spring and summer months than maybe in the winter months, right? So, but you want to have things in place to make sure that you don't lose out on that business, right? But also do it in a way that you're not repelling the future business, right? We don't want to be too aggressive and salesy. And so one of the companies that I use that leverages technology and people is a company called Smart Alto. Smart Alto, SMARTALTO, smartalto.com. What they are is they are a texting-based ISA where they will actually have text conversations. It's real people. It's not automation, real people having texting conversations with the intent of getting appointments on your calendar, whether you're using Calendly or just a Google Calendar or whatever. And so that's one great way that they're not super aggressive. They're not like trying to hammer people. They're just trying to find out, can we help and serve? Can we help and serve? So that's one example of sort of technology and people leverage to build in. Now, I didn't start using I wasn't using that out of the gate, right? It's baby steps. Start where you are and plan out, okay, what am I going to do over the next 90 days, the next 180 days, the next year, and you build up, right? You don't have to have everything figured out right up front. You can figure it out while you go. And the nice thing is, in our business, you can screw up a lot, and commissions are a great slack adjuster, right? Like, but when we do something right, and when we're able to help and serve a client, like, it can help solve a lot of, mistakes, or help cover up. Now, you don't want to have that as the long-term perspective, but it's nice to know that, when you do hit, and when you do have the opportunity to serve a client, that you're rewarded handsomely, generally speaking, and then you can take a portion of that and reinvest into more ads to build your pipeline, or into things like Smart Alto or other services similar to that, so you can get back more of your time to invest more of that time into higher dollar producing activities.
That's great. That's really good. And now for, I guess, just trying to change my thought here a little bit on this. What about, I guess, are there certain markets that you're seeing StreetText work better in? Or is there certain campaigns? I know Josh had mentioned, is 12 steps or 12 tips on listing properties. Is there a certain application, certain, buyers? Are you guys having success with any selling propositions besides the tips?
Yeah, our most popular ad is the "What's Your Home Really Worth" ad. Enter your address to receive your home value. Now, what you got to recognize, there's two different type of ads that really are popular with StreetText. There's a lead ad, which is like the 12 tips ad that automatically, if you click on that particular ad image and copy, it automatically collects that lead's name, phone number, and email. That's a lead ad. That's the lead software from Facebook. And that's great because that's instant gratification. That person can say next, and they get exactly what was promised if you're setting up these ads right. That is typically how you set up a buyer ad too. Let's say you're, see all available single family homes with a pool in Los Angeles, right? That'd be a typical style of ad. Click on it instantly. You'll find in general that one, including your listings, like if you have any listings you're looking to market, will give you the most bang for your buck. Like you'll get more phone numbers than you can ever imagine with ads that set up properly. But the home value ad experience is a little bit differently. And the success with that is built on the micro commitments that Josh was alluding to. You're going to have someone that clicks on an ad that says, "What's your home really worth?" And they know they have to enter their address to receive their home value. So when they give that information, they get to decide in that moment, and this is happening about 60 to 70% of every one of these clicks will give you an address. This is unheard of in the industry of Facebook marketing, let alone real estate. That's what makes it so successful. But where the rubber hits the road is at that moment, that information is collected. Josh turned one of those into a listing, but the next part of that funnel is where we ask email permission, and they have to provide an email. So they have to click on a box, give email permission. That's where they're expecting that home value conversation to begin. Or in many cases, you're probably thinking this person in the top of their mind is thinking, I'm going to get an instant market value in that moment. So if they're going back to their inbox thinking, they're going to go to their email and see that their home's worth $349,000, this is where you create that opportunity. And that's where Josh begins the conversation. If he has an automation that communicates the right language, video is going to be a powerful opportunity there, because just like we're doing here, body language and tonality says so much. Is that person feeling like they're being sold or taken, like everyone else is trying to take their business? Or do they feel like this person, Josh, in that moment is authentically looking to serve and help them and consult them? And so in that moment, that's the digital door knocking experience. And then the layers continue in that. So if they gave you the email, they can also tell you a little bit about their home, the condition of their home, their time frame for selling if they have one. Are they just curious? Do they have anything they want to tell you about, age updates, renovations? They can fill that in. And then deeper into the funnel, then we ask them if they'd like to get contacted, and they can put their name and phone number, even schedule an appointment. So it's done in that sequence, and that's what creates success with that, because no matter what address is collected, a percentage of those will give you an email, percentage of those will go deeper and deeper and deeper. But Josh has solutions that he's set up for each capture along the way.
That's great. And then I think it reminds me of something Josh said, that he had one of his first leads he got was an address only. So I'm guessing that's somebody who put their address in, didn't finish out the form, but you have their address. And so how did you connect with them, Josh? I mean, you just send a letter, knock on their door?
Yeah, so I just sent a little package. It had a letter, some information, and basically the letter had a couple of unique value propositions that we offer, and that's what caught their eye, started a conversation. And that one was a funny story because they were getting ready to list their property with a competing brokerage. That letter and the unique value proposition caused her to have a conversation, had a follow-up conversation, and like the third or fourth conversation, she's like, Josh, you put me in a hard spot here, because now I got to figure out how to tell this Remax lady that we're going to work with you, right? And all of that came from me not selling at all. Like I was not trying to convince her not to list with this other woman. It was the opposite. I was trying to find, how can I serve them, right? How can I serve them better? And I didn't know what they were being offered other than, probably a traditional listing. And so just that coming from service is the reason why I won that business. And at no point did I ask her for the listing. I just kept serving until she decided. Actually, it was the husband, I think, was probably the deciding factor, because he was funny. It was actually, so my third touch was an actual walkthrough of the property. And I'm sitting at the table and the husband says, like, I'm not there, to the wife, I like this guy way better than that I won't say the other brokerage, that lady from that other brokerage. And I just was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. But it was just, it's coming from service and value. Now you had asked a couple of questions in there, Josh, that what areas, offers, things of that nature. My 2 cents is this. I hear from and see StreetText users using it in every market imaginable, pretty much. And I have people in my organization in wildly different markets using it. So it's not whether or not it'll work in your market. Certain markets, you may have to try different offers. You also have to adjust your perspective or expectations, because if your average commission or average sale price is 700,000, whereas mine is 275, your cost per lead is probably also going to adjust similarly to that, right? So understanding that and not saying, okay, well, I don't understand why this guy is getting leads for $2. Well, his average home price is $180,000, right? Like it's not apples to apples. So it's adjusting your expectations and your perspective. And then the other thing I think I still struggle with this too, is better to go an inch wide and a mile deep than a mile wide and an inch deep. And what that means in this context is, I think too often people try all different types of campaigns, and StreetText has many different that will work. Better is to pick one and go real deep with that one, than to try this one this week and this one next week and this one the following week and the one, kind of avoiding that shiny object syndrome. Make your best, make an educated decision on where to start, knowing that you can pivot along the way. But if your goal is, or you come into it thinking I'm going to pivot every week or something like that, you're just creating confusion and frustration for yourself. And so, that inch wide, mile deep, I think has a ton of, application in this conversation, and well beyond that as well. But I think you're always better served from that perspective than to try and be, doing this and that and having all these different things going on.
Josh, I couldn't agree more. I have so many people that I feel they get lost in the split testing and A/B testing, and they just constantly try to beat their last ad and see if, and they're not focusing on follow. They just they're just addicted to ad performance. And then you have people like yourself and, Jakey Patel, who's a LCA moderator too, who've left ads on for $6,000, and they don't really look at their ads. They don't care. They're building social influence. In the meantime, their ads are performing, and they just go about just crushing it on the follow-up side. Because see, a lot of people don't understand too, your ads will get social influence over time. You'll have hundreds of likes, people commenting. You have to remember they're commenting and you have to comment back, and you can keep it lighthearted and fun on there too, and your personality could shine through. So don't neglect that stuff. And this is all what StreetText teaches you, because it's not just letting an ad, you don't just set it and forget it. You've got to realize social interactions happening on that ad too. So make sure you're personally connecting with those people. Every time there's a like, that person's name shows up on that ad. You could be personally messaging that person on Facebook, just as you can with the comments. So there's a couple of things that you learn along the way that, I think makes you a better social influencer in general.
Yep.
Yeah, we say at the end of the day, a Facebook ad is a conversation starter. It's not a sale. And that's the confusion part for people, whereas they get the lead from Facebook. They message the person says, I'm working with an agent, which Josh met someone in an address only who was working with an agent, and they go, oh, it's not working. And then they stop the process and they restart it again later. You're really building a pipeline of conversations where you're constantly adding value and education. If there's ever been a more confusing time in the world, I'd say we're sitting in one right now. And the agent who is making a lot of effort to consistently educate me around how I could best deal with this during this time is the agent that's going to win my business. The one that, is not quickly jumping to the punchline, like, hey, do you want to list? Are you listing? When do you think you're listing? Like I end up on a lot of people's email lists because, we're testing stuff and I get like these random, and I've received from one person that did a trial a while ago who was very transactional based. I've received probably about 4 emails in a matter of 2 weeks, and all of them have said, hey, you're thinking about listing? Hey, you still thinking about listing? Hey, you're thinking about listing? Like that language isn't going to keep conversations going. And we build relationship based on conversation. So people like Josh, what they've done is they've built a pipeline of conversations that continue like a year later, that continue like that meet the needs of the people that clicked on the ads and not our immediate need to like get a sale this month. So it's really about being a conversationalist and learning how to replicate conversation.
And 2 things from that I want to highlight. Number one, from this, I know the topic of today is around leverage. If you're not using video, you have to immediately. So for my organization, I do a daily huddle Monday through Thursday, and we had our national or one of our corporate conferences last week, and one of the other folks at my organization who was there with me, I asked him to share his takeaways. And he shared 2 things. The second of which is the most relevant, is that if you're going to, survive and thrive in real estate, like video is not optional anymore. It's just not. The same as, back in the 80s, if you wanted to survive and thrive, like you had to cold call and door knock. Like you just kind of had to do. We didn't have the internet. There weren't these, these media channels that we have today. And so you've got to, it's not optional. Like it's either you adapt it in some form or fashion, or eventually you're going to be in rough shape. And the 2 ways I think to leverage that is one-to-one video, right? Using BombBomb or some similar type of platform. But the other one is, and this kind of relates to something Ira had said that made me think of it, is when you get asked a question, and if you're asked it multiple times, or the answer is valuable beyond just that specific person that answered, like make a video and send that video, use that video, send it to multiple people, or use it in whatever way makes sense, because that's a perfect example of leveraging yourself, right? Like look for ways that you can do work once and use it and leverage it, more than once, and maybe over time, over and over and over. Like, for example, I have a video, a 3-minute video explaining what an earnest money deposit is. Because a lot of buyers have no idea what that is, right? And so instead of me taking 3 minutes to explain that every time a buyer asks me what that is, I say, oh, I have a video. I'll send you a video. Now I've saved myself 3 minutes, And I'm giving them, I'm making it, I'm putting the ball in their court where they can consume it when they want, right? They can choose to consume it how and when they want. So video is just a wonderful way to leverage yourself and create content in a way that it makes it easier for, okay, so like cold calling versus leveraging something like video, right? You call someone, and even if they're open to a conversation and they are thinking about selling, it might be the wrong time, they might be frustrated, versus you sending them a video message that they choose when they can consume and then get back to you. Like, that's just the world we live in right now. You have to make it as easy and frictionless for someone to do business with you as possible. If you're trying to force people to do business in the way you want to do business, you're fighting a losing battle. You have to create as a frictionless experience as possible and make it as easy as possible for someone to choose to do business with you. Anyway, got a little bit on a rant there.
No, a lot of great information. I don't know, I've learned a lot from this conversation. I appreciate you guys' time. One thing that Marcus said, I want to kind of come back to you. Marcus, you said one thing that StreetText teaches. So besides the platform, is there some other knowledge base, something else to help people that join and work with you guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, we're speaking, this is a solution. So if you look at the way StreetText works, is today we're talking about maybe a small piece, the lead generation. But then what about leveraging your automations? What about integrations? What about the lead conversion part of this? What about our masterminds, which we find are probably the best part of StreetText? Every week, Josh and all our community comes together and we just collaborate and talk about what's working, what's not working. On the conversation around how do we get appointments, how did Janky do 50 plus deals? How does Josh 17's ROI? How did Donna do 200 plus deals since starting with 2015? We break that down every day and we showcase someone's strategy because something comes new out of it. Ad help and performance reviews, all that stuff. That's part of what you get with StreetText. And then really quickly, this type of stuff, what we were talking about with video and Josh was talking about video, this is what you want to have in people's inboxes. Even this one, you see the value of community. You're not just talking about their home and the real estate market. I think a big part of this to understand is you want to showcase who you are in the community, how you give back to the community. Of course, if you can show them that, because you're building your tribe and you're going to have people that don't like you, but this is all about the model of know, like, and trust. So you got to learn to humanize this process, get them to see you and like you, and then they'll trust you. And that comes through giving, that comes from contribution, that comes from being, asking the right questions, being a conversationalist and speaking to them as a real person. This is why you can't just let automations do your job. Because if you just focus on that, it'll be like a chance rather than intentionality. And this is, you're here to serve and to come back. And it's a combination of smart and effective automations, but it's the personal touch that you bring and the measurement of that. I love BombBomb, for example, is because if I send something, I can see if they opened it, I can see if they've played the video, I can see if they've clicked on that link that I put inside of that email, if that link is connecting to my calendar or maybe to connect with me on Facebook. I know it's working. Now it's just a matter of time before they, start a conversation. That could take 6 to 10 touches because they might just be sitting back and been burned by so many other people. They don't want to talk yet. They just want to see if you're genuinely going to continue to serve them.
Yeah, and take what Marcus just said there and combine it with what Josh said. When you're tracking content, you get the unique ability to see what content is resonating most with the people you're working with. So like, for example, I added a video to one of my first introductions when people come into StreetText. I wasn't sure if the video was too long or not. Like, is this going to get people's attention? Is it going to give them what they need? I was kind of thinking about the person who's like rushed and just wants like the easy, like, here's a quick little thing. So what did I do? I put it in my automations and then I watched it. How many people watched the video completely to the end? How much of 100% watch did I get? When did they drop off? So like Josh is constantly on social media, is constantly putting stuff out there. When you see engagement on something, you know that that's hitting a nerve with people. So repurpose that content. Take that content and put it into your automations. Like if there's something you're talking about and you're doing it again and again and again, that tracking gives you the ability to know what's hitting hard. Like I realized a lot of people love sourdough and they like they like cinnamon buns, fresh made, because I posted something about my wife on Facebook doing those two things. It's 2 weeks and I'm still getting people commenting and liking on that content. They're engaging with me. So take engaging content and repurpose it, like repackage it, like put it together, and that's how you leverage yourself. And then you don't waste time on like content that you think you're like, have you ever done that? You're like, this email, everyone's going to open it. Like everyone's going to resonate with this. This video is going to go viral. And you put it out there and it goes complete like crickets. So you look at it and you go, hey, obviously that didn't strike a nerve. I thought it was going to, it didn't. I'm not going to keep making content like that.
I love it. Authenticity is key, right? You don't want to sound scripted or feel scripted. And I know some people need that in the beginning. They want to feel like, oh, show me something. I'll say exactly that. I'm like, well, you can't replace you. Can't replace you. You're the different. You're unique. So when you come across and introduce yourself and the way you communicate, that's authenticity. And so that's got to be you, your brand, your voice, your body language, your tonality. All of that helps. Like the video helps you do that. Otherwise, it's gonna be left to interpretation. And how many of us go to our inbox and immediately we go unsubscribe, or immediately we interpret it as, oh, this is another person trying to sell me something. Even if you have the best words written out, nothing can replace you. So that's my biggest, I think, observation the last 6 years is that video is changing the game. And like Josh said, you can't do this type of lead generation without it.
Awesome. No, I completely agree. And so I guess in terms of kind of wrapping up the purpose of this meeting here today, we obviously talking about StreetText, getting to I think we've learned a lot of different things, but in terms of leveraging, so StreetText obviously helps with the leveraging of doing the campaigns. There's also, it seems like a lot of leverage in terms of the knowledge base that is the mastermind and other things that you guys provide. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on in terms of leveraging and helping our viewers here on Lab Coat Agents understand other ways you can help them leverage their business? Because obviously agents' lives are crazy. It's a lot of hats we're trying to wear and do. Anything else to touch on?
So one thing I would say is looking through this lens on a daily basis. Eliminate, automate, delegate, right? Looking at the activities you're doing and figuring out what of the activities am I doing that should be eliminated, what of them can be automated, and what of them can I delegate, and who can I delegate it to, or what can I use? So delegate doesn't necessarily mean to a person. You can delegate to a technology or a software, right? And you can also and vice versa on automate. Automate might mean through technology, but automate might also be with people leverage, right? Because you're taking and automating something to happen, but it's just not you doing it, right? So constantly looking through that lens of, and one of this is completely unrelated, but it is related. Take a day or a week and write down every 15 minutes what you're doing. You will be shocked at the amount of time that you are wasting, or that you might be able to eliminate, automate, or delegate, so you can invest more time into higher dollar producing activities, or more time into spending time with your family or doing things that you enjoy, right? Because it's not just about squeezing every last minute out of our days into our business, but how can we squeeze every last minute into a fulfilling, well-rounded life and family and business. So
awesome. No, that's great. And keeping those things in mind, eliminate, automate, delegate. That's huge.
Collaborate.
Thanks for that.
Collaborate is the last one I would say, right?
I like that.
You need collaboration. And so what makes StreetText unique and different, and same with Josh's community, is the collaboration. I think you're either that person that thinks like it's exclusivity and I can't give away anything, or you're that person that believes in abundance and sharing and contribution. And if you look at StreetText, that what makes us unique is that we're always collaborating. We're not hiding our favorite script strategies. We're always highlighting it. We've had so many cases of agents actually come together in markets rather than separate. They come together, they become friends, they actually join each other's teams because of that collaboration. So I think find like-minded individuals when you're going down this route of Facebook lead generation. Find the community, find the tribe. That makes it more exciting. Then you'll set aside the time to learn and build the foundation, you know, with guys like Josh and Ira, StreetText community, and others that are so successful. Because that's the key, is don't try to do it alone. Those people already invented it. Now just make it your own.
Sorry, Ira. Testimonial for StreetText, because obviously you guys, you know, you're there, right? But I will tell you, as someone that is not part of their company, there are a limitless number of people and companies trying to get into our pockets as real estate agents. There are not that many that not only provide something amazing from a technology or service wise, but also have their own tribe and community that really puts service. We've been talking about service repeatedly, like they embody that in the way they run their business. It is service first. It's not sales first. You can check it out on a free trial. You will get connected with a coach who is like really committed and interested in helping you succeed. The masterminds, you will get more if you come to a mastermind. I can virtually guarantee you can get more from a free mastermind than you would from a paid coach in many cases. Where like Marcus said, people openly and freely sharing their best information and ideas, because it's a culture and a community of collaboration, like people really wanting to help and all wanting to be a rising tide that raises all ships. There aren't many companies that I think can say that in this industry. There are some, but not many.
Yeah, and to double down on what Josh said, when you do that, you're going to suffer from overwhelm. And I remember a coach once saying to me is that overwhelm is a choice. That, you know, when you get bombarded with a fire hose with all these people that are doing successful things, you can put yourself in this position where you're like, oh my God, there's just so many choices and so many options. You're right. But what really matters is the ones that you commit to. And I'll tell you that each week there is something that you can leverage and layer over time to build a process that would surprise yourself across the course of a year. You know, a lot of us are just so focused on immediate gratification that we make decisions that are split-second decisions, but we have no consistency over time to see the value that's on the other end of those daily decisions. So it's like when you come to the masterminds, when you start running things, I find a lot of people, because this business can be aggressive, like people say, I became an agent and all of a sudden everybody wants to sell me their service. So I find that people, like, they keep an arm's length from us at the beginning. They're like, I don't want to talk to another salesperson. I'm going to keep you at a far distance until I can figure this out myself. And we're like pleading with people. We're like, we're not going to sell you. Just come over and we want to show you everything. Because at the end of the day, we just want you to win. And we know if you try to figure this all out on your own, you're going to end up in overwhelm. So we're here to tell you overwhelm is completely normal. Everyone feels it, like you're drinking from a fire hose. Take stuff and layer it. You'll be surprised at what you could do across the course of a year in terms of duplicating yourself. And I think that's something like people come and share all of the time on our mastermind. So just take something, walk away, put it in action, and action after action. You'd be surprised at what you could do in a short period of time.
Yeah, think of it as, you know, for people that are gardeners, when you come to start planting the seed, right? You're planting all these seeds. This is all seeds of relationships you're planting into the soil. Now, your job is to cultivate that soil, is to weed out the bad weeds and so forth. And you don't often see the fruit right away. But when the fruit comes, that's when you know, right? So this is the ultimate garden. Facebook, Instagram, 15 miles, you're planting seeds. Some will hit right away. Sometimes they shoot right up and you have this great relationship and you've got that listing or that buyer. Others take time, and before you know it, you're like they responded to some random email 12 touches later. and you just continue to nurture and provide value and check in and offer them updated market values, and your homebot's doing its thing, your KV Core's doing its thing, you know, you're personally doing your thing. That's what this is all about, right? Because you can look back a year from now, 2 years from now, and have thousands of new contacts. Those contacts become sellers, buyers, referrals. So you're just building this influencer style community. And then with Facebook nowadays, you can even, there's even more conversation with Facebook groups, and Josh's, that's another conversation, another webinar with how Josh has created an amazing tribe within his Facebook community. So that's a whole nother thing, because Facebook's allowing you to do massive things now that when you have groups as well. So yeah, it's awesome. It's fun. And we're here to serve and here to help you see that that's the model that this world is heading into. People are spending hours upon day on social, so you want to be there.
Awesome. Well, in case you haven't seen it, there is, or kind of heard in here, but there is a 7-day free trial. So if somebody goes through, signs up, like expect a phone call within 24 or 48 hours, and like how long until ads would be able to start with that?
Essentially immediately.
Your ads go fast. Like that's what always surprises people, is like if you follow the setup cues, it automatically walks you through launching an ad. And then a lot of people are like I got a lead, I'm not sure what to do, like I just got a lead, and they're kind of in disbelief. And what I mentioned there though is don't keep an arm's distance from us. We assign you someone here at StreetText to help you learn the best practices, because we've had people get excited over meager results. Like we're like, you're excited, but if we show you the split test and how this works, we can multiply that $9 in your market, because we have an awareness of what's working. So just work with your coach. Once you start your trial, get connected to your coach, get to our onboarding demo. We walk you through the process. Like we say, we're going to teach you how to eat an elephant. You're just going to do it one bite at a time. So we'll take you through those bites and make you start feeling more confident, as well as the opposite of hopeless when you're working on the Facebook Ads Manager, and you learn it step by step. So we'll take you through those steps a lot easier. That's why we assign you a personal coach here.
And I'll tell you,
drowning.
It's not a 7-day trial. Like it sounds like, oh, you only have 7 days, but we always tell everybody, you take as much time as you need. The trial really is more of an opportunity to connect with the community and make sure it's a fit for you. And we'll spend all the time you need, and you can be in the StreetText Insider community forever until you decide. We have that happen all the time. So sometimes you just need to take a step back, join the community, come to the mastermind, check out the lead conversion workshop, check out some people like Josh, you know, tap into some of these webinars. Then it's the right time for you. So it's not always about lead generation. Sometimes you got to reverse engineer it and think about your process and your follow-up first, and then we can generate ads all day for you, because then now you're ready.
I appreciate everybody being on the call here today. I think there's been a lot of information that's been great. Josh, especially, thanks for sharing your story and here with StreetText, and look forward to having you guys here on later on, and maybe an update from me on how it's going. So look forward to it.
Thanks all.
All right, guys. Good one.
Thanks everybody.